GRIZZLY HUNTER. Book 2, The Season of Return. 5 years later, late October, same valley in northwest Montana. 1. The road back. 5 autumns had come and gone since the pit trap night, yet every mile on the Forest Service road felt like the turn of a key in old wounds. The trucks rolled beneath flame-red maples and bronzed larch, tires whispering over wet needles. Inside Jack's cab the radio crackled bluegrass, in the back Nick counted ammo like rosary beads, while Max snored with his feet on a cooler labeled, Emergency Bacon. Ahead of them, the lake of the Weeping Cliffs shimmered under a pewter sky. Low clouds hugged the crags, and every gust shook down a glittering rain of larch needles that stuck to the windshield like tiny golden arrows pointing home. Same air, same moss. Different scars, Eugene muttered, massaging the pale slash above his knee. Tuve, Montana in late October. Landscape 3, a valley waiting for snow. The first smell to greet them was cedar bark split by frost. Tamaracks glowed tangerine against the gunmetal canopy, across the lake granite faces shed last summer's vines. Chickadees flitted through damp spruce like sparks from an invisible flint. Somewhere upriver an invisible bull elk bugled, the sound reverberating against high walls until it felt less like an animal and more like the valley itself clearing its throat. Rain fell now as soft sleet, needles of ice that bit the cheek but melted instantly. Underfoot, bearberry leaves shone crimson, on the wind, cotton-sweet wood smoke drifted from cabins 20 miles south. The forest looked like an oil painting half forgotten on an easel while the artist ran in for coffee. 3 old jokes, new plans. They pitched the same wall tent on the same hump of gravel and hung the same green lantern that still bore a dent from the ghost bear's first visit. Humor warm-up. Nick, if he shows, I'm billing him rent. Max, make it back rent. 5 years interest. Jack, fine print, payable in hides. Ted rumbled in on a side-by-side ATV at dusk, hat brim sagging with sleep, tiny Rosie barking from inside his parka like a pocket-sized siren. The old man tied up beside the fire ring, unslung 2 steel bear traps the size of garbage can lids, and grinned. If we're gonna do this, boys, we're gonna do it smart, no more pits that bite back. They spent the first night drafting what Eugene dubbed the Century Plan, 1 cage trap baited with smoked salmon and honey, 3 pressure pad snares along the creek, motion sensors tied to a battery of boat horns, and, above all, a rule that no one walked alone. 4 October storm. Rain hammered the valley for 48 hours. Inside the tent the stove ticked and hissed, outside, birch leaves matted the ground thick as wax paper. Zarina, older now, muzzle dusted silver, curled by the door flap, eyes tracking every shadow. When the downpour eased, Jack and Max jogged to the creek for fresh water and found prints already softening in the slush, wide, heavy, directionless, as though the bear preferred circles to straight lines. He's still here. Still awake, Jack answered. And still teaching us geometry. That evening Nick rigged a trail cam on a birch and sprinkled sardine oil in a starburst pattern. At 2:17 the cam snapped 3 frames, a hulking blur, amber eye shine, steam curling from flared nostrils. The bear sniffed, swatted the lens sideways, then faced the tent lights across the lake. In the photo his posture looked eerily deliberate. 5 chests on mud and granite. They wove rawhide scent drags to funnel him toward the cage trap, poured diluted honey on the foliage inside the steel bars. The valley answered with silence. 2 nights passed. The doors stayed open, the bait went untouched, except for the blue jays who scolded them at breakfast for wasting sugar. Meanwhile the 3 creek snares lay cocked and deadly. On the 3rd dawn, Max found snare number 2 sprung, and empty. Thick claw marks scored the log where the cable had been anchored, the steel itself lay neatly looped beside the path, as if someone had unwound it with pliers. He learned. That night Ted sat near the fire sharpening a skinner, Rosie asleep in his lap, and told a legend. Some bears get old enough, hungry enough, they figure out that anything man builds can be broken. Those are the ones that graduate from bear to spook. 6th encounter at Crater Bend. 4th midnight, sleet again, glassy on tent canvas. Eugene slipped out to check the cage sensor. 30 yards from camp he heard the one sound that still haunted his dreams, a low, wet growl followed by the crack of brush under heavy mass. The flashlight beam jittered, caught charcoal fur, and froze. Zarina exploded from the darkness, intercepting the charge. Teeth met fur, the ground trembled. Eugene stumbled back as the bear reared, jaws clacking. Ted's 12-gauge barked rock salt over their heads, forcing the brute sideways. A second shot churned the mud at its feet. The bear swung a paw the size of a hubcap, snapped a sapling, and disappeared, leaving Zarina bruised but upright. In its wake lay Rosie's little orange vest, torn but empty. A yelp from the underbrush proved she'd slipped the blow and gone to ground. Ted exhaled months of dread in a single shudder. 7. Nature Interlude, The Daylight Gap. Morning broke hard and bright, snow glittering on the high backs of the Bitterroot Range. Steam rose in whirls from the lake, otters skated along the thin ice edge, laughing in the language only otters understand. Ravens croaked above spruce spires. In the distance a wolf pack answered the sun with a chorus that hovered between him and hunger. The men dressed Zarina's bruises with pine resin salve, sipped camp coffee thick enough to mortar bricks, and listened to winter arriving on crow wings. Humor crept back like a dog testing a cold porch. At least the bear hates our traps more than our cooking. Give him time, he hasn't tried the oatmeal. 8. Building the Jackbox. Jack unveiled his ace, a collapsible steel culvert welded to a guillotine door, camouflaged with spruce boughs and wired to a weight trigger loaded with a 1-second delay. The bait? A burlap bag of smoked trout hung just beyond reach. They placed the jackbox in a natural choke point by the river, where an enormous half-uprooted cedar formed a tunnel. Motion cameras reset. Trip lines hidden. A spritz of fish oil on the wind. Night 6, still nothing. Night 7, on the trailcam a silhouette loomed at the culvert entrance, sniffed, then turned, but not before peering straight into the lens, eyes glowing pale green like backlit quartz. He's casing us, Nick muttered. We're the bait. 9. Clash at the Jackbox. Night 8, blizzard banners across the sky. The tent shook, stove roared, sparks rattled into the dark. 3:09, the Forest Service radio crackled the motion alarm. All 5 men spilled out, guns and lights ready. The forest hit every beam but the one shining on the jackbox, door down, cage rocking, snow churned. They advanced. Snow hissed into steam where the bear's breath hit the bars. He shook the culvert like a maraca, teeth squealing on steel, eyes wild but calculated. Ted's voice trembled as he dropped the tranquilizer dart through the roof hatch. 10 seconds. 20. The bear sagged, shoulders still as boulders, paw draped through the grate like a felled mast. Relief hit them like whiskey. Eugene kissed the steel. Max howled triumph to the moon. Nick filmed it all, shaky and laughing. Zarina stood guard, ears flattened but tail thumping. 10. Turning the page. Wildlife officers arrived at dawn in a green helicopter, winter rotor wash shredding frost off the treetops. Paperwork, handshakes, a signature that read like absolution. They loaded Subject Beat 317, their name for the ghost bear, into a reinforced crate. The men watched until the rotors dwindled to a mosquito hum. That night celebration filled the valley, elk steaks, rye whiskey, banjo chords under starlight. Ted gave a toast. To the valley, to smart dogs, and to second chances. Eugene raised his mug, and to never digging another pit. Laughter rolled off the cliffs like spring runoff. Thumbs up if you believe raptors and wild rivers deserve protection, like, subscribe, and share. Bellhop bell turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story in this series. Disclaimer, this is a fictional narrative. No animals were harmed. We support legal, ethical hunting and conservation. Poaching is a crime.